Hey guys, what's up? Unrested here, back again, here at the park with my tiny babies. I don't know, can you see any in the background? They've disappeared, they're gone. No, I can see them there off camera. Okay, here today because it's beautiful out. If it gets kind of loud outside, sorry. We got some sirens, some ambulances, some kids yelling in the background, but I'm not going to tell kids at a park to be quiet because it's a park and it's for kids. I want to get into a video today talking about 3 types of gaijin, and these are the types of gaijin that you don't want to be. If you don't know what a gaijin is a person from outside of Japan, so just any foreigner to Japan, someone who's not a nationalized Japanese citizen. That's of course me. Even on a permanent resident visa, I am still considered a gaijin, yes. Some people in the past, I've heard them say, isn't gaijin a racist word? No, not really. It's just a shortened word for gaikokujin, which I guess if you literally translate the kanji associated with that word, it's country outside of Japan, or foreign country. I don't understand how that's racist. I think that's just kind of appropriate. You're outside of Japan. You're from outside of Japan. You weren't born in Japan. Now, of course, my own kids, if people call them that, that would be kind of offensive because they were born within Japan and they are Japanese citizens and they are considered Japanese, even though they are half, which means half Japanese. So, let's get into it. 3 types of gaijin you do not want to be in Japan. I've kind of gone over a little bit of these in the past before with the elitist gaijin and the bitter gaijin. Today I'm going to add the selfish gaijin too. Let's start first with the elitist gaijin. Now, the elitist gaijin is someone who's learned a lot about Japan, maybe always been kind of an otaku about Japan, which there is nothing wrong with. If you're crazy about Japan, love Japan, want to research Japan, learn everything you can, learn the language perfectly, hey, good on you. I mean, that's great. You know, go for it. There's nothing against that. But when you use that to consider your status above the status of other gaijin living in Japan or ones who've just gotten to Japan, that's where it becomes a problem. And I see this a lot with either people who've been here a medium amount of time to people who've only come here for a very short amount of time. A lot of times there's this group of people who get here for about maybe 4 years or so. They learn the language pretty decent, as good or better than myself, and they learn a couple niche places around Japan. They get some Japanese friends. They learn a little bit more about Japanese stuff that you wouldn't just casually read on the internet, and they decide that they are an elite Japanese Japanophile and that they know anything and everything about Japan. You can't tell them anything new if you're right off the boat, even if maybe you went to college and studied, you know, Eastern culture your entire degree. And these people will throw it in the other people's face who've just gotten here. They'll be like, oh, well, you don't know how to order this and this yet, or you don't know to go here to get this. And it's just not needed. Others will not even associate with some who've just come here and they can't even speak the language yet, which is a lot of people come here right off the boat and can't talk any Japanese at all. They can't speak any. I myself had a very minimal skill. I studied as many books as I could and then realized that it didn't really help much because I had studied Kanto-ben in the books, and when I got to Osaka they spoke Kansai-ben, and it didn't really help me too much. There was a lot of different ending for the suffixes and stuff for words here. So I had to learn the language almost completely over again. And there were some people there who just, like, they wouldn't even want to, like, make eye contact with you or talk to you. And I'm talking, like, at your job, like, other employees you worked with, because of this. And of course, I didn't just see it with myself. I saw it with other people who were coming straight off. Maybe it'd be their first week. I'd be happy to, like, introduce myself, talk to them, get them to know the area that we lived in, which was Sakutagawa at the time, and show them different areas. And there'd be guys who'd been there for 4 and 5 years. They'd be like, why do you waste your time? Those guys aren't going to stay long anyway. And it's like, how do you really know? How do you really know what anybody's future in Japan is? How do you know that just because a person got off the boat for the first time and they're kind of not acclimated yet and a bit surprised by everything in Japan, that they're not going to eventually get comfortable with different aspects and live here a long time? I myself wanted to live here 1 year. My friends had come here to Japan and worked for Nova in the past. They had made it 1 year, and my goal was, I bet I can last more than 1 year. Well, here I am almost 10 years later, and I'm still here, and I'm most likely never going home. That was not my initial plan. So I feel like you really shouldn't put anybody into a certain category as far as how long they're going to stay. And even if there is a certain amount of time or set time that they're going to stay, like college students, of course, a lot of the times the money that's keeping them here is the college loan or maybe even grant that they have bringing them over here, or the transfer status that they have from their college, and then they have to go back through no fault of their own, just because money or time or education requires it. Why should we treat them any different for just how long they're going to be here? Why should we treat anybody different for how much or how little Japanese they speak? You know, let everybody learn at their own pace and let everybody learn the way that they want to learn. Some people can read it way better. I myself, I'm really good at memorizing a lot of words. So I have a very big vocabulary, but I can't read very well because I'm not as good at memorizing kanji, whereas some people can read and read and read and barely speak at all. I had one friend who could read technical levels that were just unbelievable with like IT stuff in Japanese, but he could barely speak because he just felt kind of nervous about speaking it, or it was hard for the language to roll off his tongue. I'm not going to think any less of him for that. Of course, you know, when he got to bars and stuff, he felt a little more awkward, and you know, he had more trouble associating with new people, but you know, then that's the time where you could step in and maybe use your skill to help him connect to other people rather than shun them and be like, yeah, my friend over here can't speak any Japanese. I had one friend like this who was constantly going on about other people that he would meet. And at first I just thought like, well, you know, this is something he'll get over. He won't constantly bring this up as a topic of how much people can't speak Japanese. But it just kept lasting and lasting up until like the 8 years that he was here. Eventually he would do this so much, talk so much trash about other people who couldn't speak Japanese on his level, and his level was very good, I can't deny that, but he would talk so much trash about these people who couldn't speak on the same level as him that people started distancing themselves from him more and more, to a point that he was completely alone. He had little to no friends left in Japan. Even I myself started to distance myself just from how much trash he used to talk about so many people, that it was something that felt overly negative to just even hang out with someone who did that much. He ended up so alone that he eventually got into drugs and stuff, and eventually that's what got him kicked out of the country. And he can't even come back here. I think it's like 10 years or something now. He's banned from the country for 10 years because of that. And it was all kind of a downfall of him being elitist and kind of disassociating himself with everybody around him and disconnecting and putting himself on another level. He really looked down on everybody new who came to Japan, and it really, I mean, it kind of put him in a bubble. I myself, I'm actually kind of happy to help people who come here. If I see people lost, if I see people reading a map, I'll step over and show them around and help them get to a certain area, because that's what Japanese people did for me when I got here, and I thought that was awesome. I was like, wow, that was so awesome, that was so nice. I wish I could be that nice and that awesome. And so I try to do it. I don't know if that's the way it's taken, but I hope it is. The next one is the bitter gaijin. And this is kind of what some of those elitists become when they've been here too long and kind of ostracize themselves by, I guess, shoving others to the side for not being as good at being Japanese as them. The bitter gaijin either are those type of people, or they're the type of people who remain in Japan yet continually begin to hate more and more about Japan. There's many things that are very different. The way things that are done here are very different. There is some ridiculous things. I'm not gonna lie and try to stick up for everything Japan does as being awesome. For example, ATMs closing on holidays is bullshit. You don't pay an ATM to work. An ATM doesn't get tired. So them closing the ATM so you can't get money is just so that they can make some interest off of your money in foreign banks. I mean, we're not stupid. We know how money works. And it's a super big inconvenience. There's other things, like if you go to a restaurant and you ask for an order to be slightly changed, and I'm talking slight, like, hey, can you not put ketchup on my hamburger? And they're like, all the hamburgers have ketchup here. They can't do that. They won't differ at all from the main menu. It'll freak the staff out. They'll just be like, no, we have to, we always put ketchup on the burgers here. We can't do that. So yeah, I understand those can be inconvenient at times. Certain foods you can't get here make some people bitter. I mean, there's a bunch of different aspects. If you go to a bookstore and you look in the English section, the only thing they have is the most popular English books. You can get maybe Harry Potter or Jack London, and that's about it. I get it, those are annoying, but there's people who, I guess, almost embrace those inconveniences to the point of constantly complaining about them and becoming these bitter souls in Japan. The odd part about it is that they continue to remain in Japan. I mean, there might be some reasons as to why they do. For example, some get married and they have kids and they're like, I can only afford to live here with my kids. Maybe if they're American, they can only afford the health care here, which it's much, much cheaper than America. So they're like, yeah, I'm trapped here because this is where I got to get health care from. I understand to a certain extent. I mean, but the thing is, if the reason you're staying here is because of the convenience of something, then that must make that something pretty important if it's keeping you here, which makes it such a convenience that how can you be bitter about all the things that are not perfect? If you go back to your own country, you're just going to run into things that make you bitter there too. No country's perfect, or we would all kind of mold our countries around that model of that country. So getting bitter about the place you live, I feel like it's such a waste of your life. Why not make the best of everything you have rather than become bitter about it? And last but not least, the selfish gaijin. Now, these are gaijin, I guess, maybe they would probably be selfish anywhere they were in the world. For example, I just recently had a form of this at one place I work now, where there's a gaijin there who decided that he's unhappy that there's a female manager at our place, and he's gone out of his way to try and find any and every little thing that that manager does wrong so that he can nitpick and try and, I guess, bring it up to the owner and cause some sort of distress for her job, and possibly maybe he can grab it then. This seems to be the motive as I watch from an objective viewpoint, and this is just a really selfish thing to do. Anything and everything that we get while we're here in this country, we probably work pretty hard for because we have to learn it from just, you know, the most basic stuff. If we learn how to start a business here, well, we've had to learn all the kanji and all the Japanese behind starting that business and all the stuff that's going to be on the notary papers, the associative papers and everything. We've had to learn quite a bit, so we've done a lot of work to get to that point that we've started our own company. No one's just handed you a company in Japan. Same with a job. If you've worked your way up to a management position of your job, you've done that because, number one, you've worked well with the harmony of the Japanese workplace, which is an acquired skill. It's not something you come to Japan knowing unless you've lived in Japan before. You have to slowly learn how to assimilate yourself into the working environment that is Japan. It's not a bad thing. It's not a great thing. It's just what Japan is. It's different. It's a different thing. It's very different from how you and I would work in America. The tone, the amount of loyalty, the discretion that you have, and calling attention to certain aspects of other employees, it's all different in Japan. And if someone's done the work that it's been noted that they've assimilated well into these different facets of the Japanese workplace, and it's gotten them to a point where they've worked up to the point of being a manager, to try and take them away from that just because you feel like you should be in that position is selfish. And I see this kind of thing all the time. I would see people try to go out of their way to hurt other people's job positions just because they want it, and they feel like they've got to do anything and be cutthroat because they live in Japan and there's no kind of safety nets here. Well, I need to do this, I need to get that money because, you know, it's not like if I get kicked out of my house, you know, I can go live with my parents. It's not like if I get sick or something, I can afford, you know, big medical bills. I got to make sure I'm on the highest level so I'm getting the best company insurance, or, you know, I'm full-time so that I'm getting the 70% national health insurance pay. You know, if you get to that level that you're raising up in different bars and levels in the job, it's because you've earned it here in Japan. Longevity is one of the most important aspects of that. Meritocracy is kind of pushed to the side sometimes, but the reason that a gaijin would climb in levels in Japan is because they're doing a decent job. Japanese staff, for the most time, they can gain those by just being at the company for a long time because they just learn the wa of the workplace, the harmony of the workplace, and that's how they've climbed. A lot of times with the gaijin, they've had to really learn how to almost make themselves a Japanese worker to climb the ladder, and it's something that's hard and not easily earned, and to try and take that away from somebody is a selfish thing to do. So don't be those gaijin. Don't be the elitists. Don't be the selfish. Don't be the bitter. Take your time to help the people that you see just brand new to Japan. If they're lost, help them find their way. If you see somebody staring at a map or a subway system that just looks incredibly complicated, like the Tokyo subway system, take a step over there and help them. Ask them, is there a train you're trying to get on? Maybe they're on the wrong side, going the wrong way. All right, they're on the northbound when they're trying to get on the southbound train. Help them out. Tell them, you need to easily get over it by just going up the stairs this way and crossing over to the other side. I've had this happen multiple times where I've told people, no, you're actually going on the train going the opposite way. It's really easy to get mixed up in Japan. If you see things that are an inconvenience to you in Japan, realize that you'll probably find inconveniences of a different type in any other country. All right, these will follow you in any other country. You'll find things you don't like. For example, if I go back to America, I'm going to deal with way too expensive medical bills. Okay, if my kid gets a fever, it's going to cost me $1,000 there to take care of it. That's a new inconvenience that I don't have here in Japan, where it only costs me $5 for any sickness my kid would ever have. Okay, inconveniences are going to follow you anywhere. You can be bitter in your own country if you can be bitter here. And last but not least, don't be the selfish gaijin. Work your way up to wherever you want to be in your job and enjoy the fact that you're there. Don't try to steal that away from other people at the same time. And if you see people launching businesses or doing better than yourself, root them on. Root on the gaijin that you see succeeding in Japan, because if anything, that bodes well for your future. Anyway, I hope that's helped you out a little bit, know a little bit about the different types of, I guess, more negative gaijin that you might meet here in Japan. Yes, you will meet many while you are here, and I'm sure some of you who live here who watch my videos have already met some of these. If you have, list them and their stories in the comments below. I would love to hear them and share stories with you. Until next time, I'm Unrested with the questions you requested. This is JFAC, Japan's Frequently Asked Questions. Have a good one.